Welcome to Happier ADHD. My name's Marley Darling. I'm a second generation neurodiversity expert with over 17 years experience, and now I'm raising my own neurodiverse kids. You'll notice that I call the podcast a few different things, but we always explore these same topics that I've been looking at for the last 17 years. Psychology, mindset, neurodiversity, personal development, health and well-being, business, parenting, and more. So, without further ado, let's jump in. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. My name's Marley Darling. I've been studying neurodiversity for the last 17 years and I'm a solo parent of 2 kiddos, and all 3 of us have ADHD and are on the autism spectrum. What's been on my mind this week has really been rhythm and relationships. I've been focusing on loving and appreciating my life now while we improve various aspects, so behaviors and habits, and try and get a routine really set in. We're going into autumn here and we're just about to end daylight savings. So over the summer, we have like 15 hours of daylight, and in the winter we have 9.5. So it's quite a bit of a change. And instead of it getting dark at 9 o'clock at night, suddenly it's dark by 7. And I'm really enjoying the coziness. I'll talk a little bit later in health about how I shifted my mindset around shorter days and the winter time, and worked on my mental health there. I think I'm actually going to talk about it in the hack section as well. So I've been thinking about that rhythm, and I've been thinking about integrating moments of connection in our life and inspiring that cooperation. The breakthrough of this week has been that we went away for 3 nights. It's Easter time as I record this. So we went away for Easter and we stayed in somebody else's home, not a holiday accommodation, someone's home. So it was a lot more personal and a different level of concern, I suppose, and respect for their space. And there wasn't going to be a cleaner come and clean up after us. And we successfully did that. The kids were respectful. There was a bit of jumping on the couch, but for the most part, it was really good. And it was a great test for when we go away for 3 weeks later this year. It's going to be a big road trip that we do, and there'll be outings every day. And I'm not quite sure how we'll go changing our accommodation. For the first 3 nights, we're going to be changing accommodation every day. And we'll be staying in 8 different places, and we'll be moving 10 times in 21 days, which is kind of insane. But seeing how the kids are when we're away from home is really interesting. Their moods shift. And I think part of it is their brains are lit up with the novelty of a new place. Part of it is having respect for a place that isn't theirs. You get really comfortable at home. You get really comfortable with your parents and family, and you can change your behavior and relax your standards a little bit. And I think the other thing is subconscious, is that the way our brain works and our neurological wiring is that when a pattern is triggered, we follow through with that pattern. And triggers can be anything and everywhere, especially in our home. We're used to certain behaviors and habits, and those are associated subconsciously with everything we see, hear, and feel in our own home. So everything visually is a subconscious trigger in a really subtle way, but it's there. So seeing my kids and their behavior, and I know that they are like this when we go and stay other places. They're a lot easier to manage, but it was really reaffirming to experience that again, and to respect someone's space, and to practice packing up early to get ready to leave. We didn't have to be out by a certain time, but we wanted to be out by 10 a.m. for the usual checkout time in holiday accommodations as a bit of a practice. And the kids were really great at getting ready for that. They were great at, when we first arrived, having a bit of a rest, then going out to the beach. So that gave me, that reaffirmation, and I trialed giving them a movie in the afternoon to relax before we then went out again, and it seemed to work fairly well. The struggle for this week is also related, and that was kids waking up in the night and me thinking, gee, I've done this for 10 years now, and they're not too bad with their sleep, but, I said to my kids, this is a bit tongue-in-cheek and a little bit maybe not so great to say to kids, but they, I think, knew that it was, a joke, kind of. It's just something I was telling them. But I told them when they woke up at 2 a.m. last week that, some people actually sleep train their babies at 6 months and let them cry it out to self-soothe. And I said I didn't want to do that with them. I want to do it the nicer way, but at some point they will need to learn those self-soothing strategies. And I love my kids and I love cuddling them to sleep. I don't so much love having to help them back to sleep in the middle of the night. And I would never force them to go through it alone and create trauma for them. But I do see why people get those sleep habits in early. And there's definitely a balance. So that's something I would love to work towards as well, is helping them self-soothe. And my older daughter, at age 10, started doing that a little bit. She said to me one day, Mum, I woke up in the night and I lay in my bed and I went back to sleep by myself. And I'm really proud. I think that's amazing that she did that. And I do know that it can be hard when your brain has lots of thoughts, when you have lots of ideas, when you have anxiety or worry, or you feel alone, or you have negative thoughts. I do know what it's like. I have been there. Thankfully, I didn't wake up in the night too much as a child. I'm not sure what it is for my kids. It's not all the time. I think for my older one, it is related to drinking water late in the day. I know for myself, if I drink liquids, then I will need to wake up to pee. I think that's what it's usually triggers it for my older daughter. For my younger daughter, while we were away, I woke up at 3 a.m. She had woken up. She was in her own room, so it wasn't too bad. She didn't wake anyone else up but me. But she woke up, turned on the light, and started reading. And this has happened maybe 3 times, maybe 4, that she'll wake up and she'll insist that she needs to read. And that's just not how you get back to sleep. My kids take melatonin. I tried to wean them off it. It didn't work. They do need to take it. So for now, we are continuing with that. But while we're away and this happened, she didn't want to take melatonin. She insisted that she didn't need it. She wouldn't take it. I didn't force it on her. I said, okay, read for a bit, then turn off the light and go back to sleep. Don't read for too long. I went back to bed because I was still sleepy, with the instruction for my brain to wake myself up soon to check on her. I woke up. I think the second time she had the light off at least, and I assumed that she was asleep. But then I woke up a third time and she was awake again with the light on. She wasn't going to sleep. So I told her, okay, look, it seems like you might need some help. You need to have some melatonin now because you're just staying awake, and I'm going to lie in here with you this time. So I lay in there with her. She had the melatonin. She chatted a bit because it can take 20 minutes to kick in. And after a bit of chatting, I said, look, I might fall asleep as you chat, so just so you know, I might not respond. And she did get back to sleep. But that did concern me, because if that happens when we're traveling, I don't want to be tired when we've got these big, exciting things to do, when we've got travel to do, when there's driving to do. I want to be in a good mood. And so as a parent, you want to support your children, but having to get up in the night and support them in that way means that in the daytime I'm not as supportive because I'm not functioning to my best level. So that's a bit of a struggle at the moment. I'd love to help them have good habits and learn to self-soothe and just go back to sleep rather than getting up and doing something, and climbing into my bed and going back to sleep is not a huge problem. But if I have to get up and go to their bed and I have to stay awake, that's not so great. So we'll see how that goes. We've got 4 or 5 months until we go away. So we'll be practicing these rhythms and routines for that because we want to have a good time. So the hack for this week is to look at the pros and cons, maybe do a pros and cons list for anything. For a struggle, for something that you might be resentful for or a bit negative about. Have gratitude for it, find the good aspects, and realize that you get to versus have to. So I'm thinking I have to get up and soothe my kids in the night, but actually I get to do that. I have beautiful kids and I have this beautiful relationship with them. I could choose not to do it, but I get to do it. No one's forcing me, but I get to. And you can do this with absolutely everything that you have any slight resentful or negative thoughts about. So when my mum comes to stay, that can be difficult because there can be some clashing between us or between my kids and her. It means that I have less alone time. There's someone else in the house. I've got to be respectful. There's a little bit of anxiety with having someone else coming and going and just the uncertainty there. But I do get some freedom in terms of my kids sometimes are happier. So sometimes they're a bit grumpier having someone in the house, but sometimes they're happier to have grandma around. It's someone else to talk to. It's someone to play with them. I could have a break from the kids by going for a quick walk. Sometimes if I'm very lucky, I could go and be social and have a proper break from the kids. I don't do that very often, but there's that little bit of freedom and flexibility where even one kid could be with one adult and one could be with the other, and we can split up if we need to. A few times ago, we were at the beach and one kid wanted to go home and one kid wanted to stay at the beach, and I got to walk home from one of our nearby beaches with my youngest child, and I'd never been able to do that walk before because my oldest child doesn't love walks. The little one's a little bit more willing, and it was really nice to have some alone time. So there's those positives and the less positives. We have to deal with a dog in the house, but we get a cute dog to pat. There might be more stuff around appearing on benches and things like that, but then there's some more help with cooking food. And because it's not all the time, it's easier to appreciate the ebbs and the flows and what you have now versus what you can have later, and what's the benefit now and the sacrifice now, and find that balance and focus on the more positive. Something that I did last year was to shift my mindset around winter time, because especially as I record this, it's April in Australia, which means it's autumn, the middle months of autumn, and the days are starting to get shorter and shorter and shorter. About 2.5 minutes every day, the day gets shorter, and suddenly dinner time's happening in the dark. And previously, I've felt like the dark is closing in, and I know that's not a helpful thought to have. So last year I went on this big mission to find out the positives of winter. And I didn't understand at first because people were saying, oh, it's nice to have cozy socks and hoodies and nice blankets and cups of tea. And in my head, that was just coping with the cold. And I thought, okay, I can hear what they're saying, but I don't quite understand. And people saying that they moved from further up in Australia where there's a bit more consistent, but they don't have the seasons, and appreciating the seasons. And growing up with 4 seasons, it took them for granted, haven't appreciated them so much because it's just how it is. And I've grown up hearing people wanting to move to places where it's warmer all the time. But I sat down and I thought, well, what are the things? What are the things that I couldn't have if I didn't have to deal with this cold? Because that's the thing. I don't like the cold and the dark. But we get to have snow. We get to have leaves falling. I did a really big deep dive into hygge and learning how to appreciate the coziness and how to bring certain elements in and how it feels different, but it can be really nice. And so that's happening this year, a year after I did all that learning, and I get it. I'm appreciating getting into cozy clothes as much as previously. I think, well, I'm glad to not have to put on so many layers. And I know that over the winter there'll be even more layers. There'll be coats and things. But at the moment, having hoodies and warm socks in the mornings and the evenings, and then nice warm in the middle of the day, nice autumn weather, is a really beautiful balance. And I enjoyed my first cup of tea, and I'm enjoying having board games in the evening after dinner. And as much as it's nice to be out in the evening and it's sunny and it's warm and you can be out until 9 o'clock, it's really nice to have these shorter days that are a bit slower and not be so go, 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 especially with parenting. It was nice in summer to be going to the beach at dinner time, but it's kind of, I'm appreciating that season is done for now, and there's a bit of rest happening, because functioning like that all the time, it's really long days. And now it's easier to get my kids to sleep at a decent time, which means I can be more restful and read more or watch some TV to myself. And so having these cycles and recognizing the positive and the negative, it's really beneficial, and it's lasting. When you do this mindset work, you are changing your neurological patterns and your thought patterns, and it can be really beneficial. So that's the hack for this week, is to write a pros and cons list, or even just a pros list. Just what are the beautiful, beneficial things of whatever it is that you feel slightly negative about. All right, so the story for this week is that I walked past the bedroom and I saw my youngest child doing the Pokemon Smile toothbrushing app, but she had the toothbrush still in her mouth. And I made an assumption. And you know what they say about assumptions? It makes an ass out of you and me. But I had a split second thought that, does she do this every time? Is there a way to cheat the app? Has she not been brushing her teeth properly, and am I an absolute fool? So out of my mouth, in a stern voice, slipped her name, and it made her jump. She didn't know I was there, and I immediately was sincerely apologetic. I did not mean to make her feel that way. I didn't want to startle her like that, and I realized that I had absolutely jumped the gun and been stern when I didn't need to be. So I apologized, and I explained that I'd been surprised about the app, and of course that wasn't what's happening, because it tracks the movement of your toothbrush. So we resolved that and repaired the relationship. It's important, if there's something happens, then you apologize or talk it out so that you can have that repair after an issue like that. And we did that. But that was a lesson for me, that I am too quick to be stern with the kids. And that comes because there's a transferal of the past experiences with them onto their current behavior. But for kids, they're just being kids. And sometimes they make mistakes. Sometimes they forget. Or sometimes I make an assumption about their behavior and what they're doing and their intentions. So that was a lesson for me, to slow down, talk it out. I've started to, when I see her sitting on her feet, instead of going on about how that's really bad for her and get off her feet, it's damaging to the ankles and she's already got hypermobility, and remember what the podiatrist said, blah, blah, blah. I've just started saying, hey, you're sitting on your feet. And I'm pretty sure I talked about this lesson a little while ago, of noting and noticing, rather than drawing to the conclusion myself and then telling them what to do. Just noticing, because kids are smart and they can figure it out themselves. So that was a reminder for me to approach things in a nicer and friendlier way, because being stern doesn't help. It creates stress, and when there's stress, people can function less well, especially neurodiverse people, especially children. So yes, that's the little story and a little lesson there. And now for a quick life check-in. So in health, I talked about, in the hack section, I just talked about feeling different about the changing of the seasons, and that's been really positive to see that I can cope a lot better this year and focus on the positive things. And, those old feelings will probably come back in, and they might need a little bit more of rewiring with the thought patterns, especially when the days are quite short. But at least I have a really good foundation with that. Exercise has been really inconsistent. My kids need me sometimes in the morning, and that's difficult, and going away a lot has been disruptive to it, and the changing of the seasons has been disruptive of it. So I'm still trying to work out how to be consistent with exercise, but I'm also learning how to be flexible with exercise. So yesterday I ran out of time to do a proper treadmill or a proper workout, so I put on some music and I had a 10-minute dance party just to make something happen. And that's the goal, is to have some form of exercise every day. And I'm pretty far behind that goal at the moment. I'm definitely slipping back into wintertime cocoon, but we will see how that goes. Also, this is kind of in health, but also kind of in house. I've been asking friends about cleansers for my daughter as she gets into that stage where she will need them. She had her first pimples, so it's definitely important, and trying to encourage and teach ADHD kids to do routine things. I know that can be tricky because it took us long enough to get the teeth thing happening, but she's diving into it, and I want to get ahead and make sure that she's got those good habits. And I want to try and encourage the younger daughter as well, because like I'm saying, it can be hard to form habits and keep habits when there's ADHD and neurodiversity. But the positive thing that came out of that is that friends suggested low waste, no plastic cleansers. And so now I'm testing it out as well as my daughter. We're using a cleansing bar, which I actually really like, because you just pick it up and lather it rather than picking up a plastic bottle, opening the lid, tipping it, squeezing it out, hoping there's not too much coming out, and then you're wasting some. And also I found out that you can get moisturizers that come in a bar, and you can get mouthwash in bulk, and I might even try shampoo bars. And just thinking about how much plastic I will save from landfill from all those consumable bottles, like that might be one of the most plastics that I use, is with all those things. So that's really exciting and a nice little change as well. And as I said, I really like the functionality of just lathering with a bar rather than having to pick up and deal with all these plastics. So that's really cool. In social stuff, a nice little hack is sharing photos of just whatever you're doing in your everyday life with family members as a way to connect and stay in touch without having the small talk. That can just be a nice thing to do. If you've got kids, sending photos of them to the grandparents. If you don't have kids, well then good on you for listening to this podcast when I talk about kids a lot, but also just sending a photo of your meal or your outfit or whatever you can connect on. And if it's not something you already do, just start doing it one day, or maybe in context you can slip in a photo in a message that you send. Because I know that I heard about people doing this a while ago, and my ex-partner used to send photos of meals, and that was his way of connecting, and it wasn't really mine. It's not kind of the dynamic and relationship I had with family members, but I've started it and I really enjoy it, because then it's just a nice way to connect without actually having to talk about stuff, especially boring kind of stuff. I don't love small talk. In parenting, so like I mentioned with the feet, just noticing and noting, but also not just the negative things, but noticing when things go well and praising when things go well. So I've been amping this up a bit as well, especially when the kids get along or when they are kind of meeting the goals and the changes that I am trying to make. And just saying, I love how you're getting along really well. I love how you did this without asking. My youngest daughter just got some paper towel and cleaned up her spill the other day, and that was great. And my oldest daughter, I can't remember what it was, but she just automatically helped the younger one with something the other day. And it's so positive to see, and the more they're praised, the more they will do it. Praise is especially important for neurodiverse kids. And the other thing was, it can be in less of a praisey way and more of a conversational way. So the other day when we went away, there was a conversation like, oh, you guys did really well with XYZ. You respected the house, you got ready in time. And I didn't just do a whole big long list, but it was just snippets of conversation here and there saying, hey, you did a really good job with that. And so they know that that's good, not good behavior. I don't like behavior forming, which is maybe why my kids aren't super great at it, because I didn't train them. I didn't do this so much when they were little because I had a thing against praise. I'd have to go into that another time, but I think it's more like I just didn't want to feel like I was training them, but I also didn't know so much about neuroscience back then. So rewarding positive behavior doesn't need to be so much like a training, but it is a guidance system and guiding people towards a good way to function in the world. And that's how we all learn. So that's what I've been doing, noticing, praising, giving positive feedback. Positive feedback might be a nicer way than saying praising. Depending on how you feel about praise, you might not have that issue with it. Anyway, moving on. In-house, I have been away a lot this year, so I'm less stressed about the bits and pieces of the house. I've been doing the main things like the washing and the dishes and the vacuuming, but there are mess piles, and I'm feeling like over the winter there'll probably be a little bit more of not a spring clean, but a reshuffling of how things are, dealing with a few piles and making the house function a little bit better because we will be at home more often. But being out of the house has been a really good way to deal with it. The one thing that I find really makes a difference is keeping the bench top and the dining table clear, because that's our main living space. It's kind of the hub of the home. And getting into this routine and rhythm where we're having dinner at the table and then playing board games has been really positive and helpful, because then the table gets cleared, hopefully once a day. It's not happening absolutely every day because there are a few kinks to work out in our routine, especially when we have evening activities. But the days that it does happen, it's really excellent. And we are keeping the talking cards on the table and the trivia cards on the table for something to do during dinner, something to talk about. And other than that, having the table clear around it feels really good, and my brain really loves it. So I guess the hack here is that when you're cleaning, do the things that are least effort, biggest impact, rather than feeling or getting caught up in the need to get the whole house done and hyper-focusing on smaller tasks. Relax a bit if you can. Do the small things that have that big impact. In productivity, I'm trying to work out how to carve out the time and energy for writing and for, sharing these insights and the 17 years of study and lessons and experimenting. It's really hard when managing other people's emotions and their needs. I function well in the morning to get stuff done, but sometimes the kids just need stuff constantly, and it's different every day, but my time and my energy is not my own sometimes. So figuring out how to do that I'm thinking it might need to be a tech day once a week, because as soon as I have these other demands piled onto me from other people, that zaps my energy. And by the end of the day, I can have alone time, but it's really hard. I've had times where I put the kids to bed and then I worked for an hour, and that's tiring. Getting up in the morning and doing it first thing, and then knowing it's done, and the rest of the day I'm just doing all the less creative, less important tasks. It feels like it's kind of more the busy work of life. It's a lot easier to do, and I feel happier and more fulfilled having done the creative thing in the morning. I just got interrupted and I can't remember what I was saying. It's not possible at the moment to get up before kids unless I cut into my sleep, and I just can't pull myself out of bed. My body is not in a state where I can just set an alarm and leap out of bed and get to it. It doesn't have the energy for that at the moment. I'd love to, and as we come into these shorter and darker days, maybe the kids will sleep longer and maybe I'll be able to, and we'll see how that goes. But setting aside a day where it's just a relaxed day, they can have a bit more tech a bit earlier, and I'm not trying to meet all these goals and expectations and things, reducing the demand on myself so I can just focus and create and have that energy for myself and keep it, then that could work. So I'll keep you posted. I can't do that this Sunday because we have an exciting colour frenzy fun run to go to, which will be really fun. We coloured powder thrown, and there's like a foam thing, and so sometimes it's fun life stuff that gets out of the way, but most Sundays there's not much stuff on, so I'm thinking that could be a nice lazy day. And I just need to create. And I want to share with people, because I know how helpful this stuff can be and how much impact it's had in my own life. All right, wrapping up now. Media at the moment, still listening to a lot of the Happier podcasts, Happier in Hollywood, and Happier Ladies. I read an entire book since we last spoke called Something Wider by Christina Loren, and it was interesting. I like to read rom-coms, but this was different because this was like an adventure rom-com, and there was like drama that happened and they were looking for treasure, and I recommend it. I think it's interesting. But there's, some trouble and turmoil. So if you don't like danger, maybe don't read it. TV shows. I haven't watched the last episode of Extraordinary yet because I don't like ending a TV show. When I finish a book, when I finish a TV show, each of those can kind of send me into a really weird mood, almost a depression, because I lose that anchor and that consistency and that thing that's feeding my brain and balancing me out. I really use them for emotional regulation. So if I finish a book and a TV show around the same time, that is really difficult for me. So I paused on that and I started watching Girls 5 Ever because I wanted to get into it to help me transition over to a new TV show. And I was reluctant to start Girls 5 Ever because I've already watched the first 2 seasons, but I just put it on one day just to try it out. Like I said in the last episode, see how you feel in the actual situation rather than letting your brain judge the concept of a situation. And I've gotten into it. So I'm watching Girls 5 Ever at the moment. And I'm still slowly reading Yesterday Crumb, but I've also started a book called Behind the Scenes by Karelia Stets Waters, which is just another rom-com about a businesswoman and a director, I think. I'm not fully into it yet. I'm just at the starting thing. So that's what I'm reading at the moment. And that's pretty much all the media that I'm consuming right now. What I'm letting go of this week is, like I said, that sternness and assumptions, because that doesn't work. And it's a lot nicer to go with the flow and have more of a pull to work towards the positive change rather than pushing and fighting and forcing and that kind of energy. So, like I said at the start, kind of appreciating how things are now while moving towards how I want things to be. And the focus for this week, maybe trying to get back into exercise and just really transitioning into this autumn stuff, having gratitude in the autumn evenings, transitioning to the shorter days. We're going to end daylight savings, so that's going to be interesting and different. So just kind of coping with these, seasonal changes, because that can be a big thing for me, and also trying to keep my health and well-being up in the meantime. So that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found things helpful. I hope it's relevant to you. And if you're not going through seasonal changes at the moment, just keep these lessons locked in there for another time, where you can always re-listen if you want to, or just listen along as a bit of a story of my life. I will talk to you in the next episode. Have a wonderful week. Bye. So you've got neurodiverse kids in your life. You've probably noticed that they don't respond well to traditional parenting techniques or discipline or ways to get them motivated or to comply. Maybe you're tearing your hair out with stress and the same old struggles and fights and arguments every single day. Or perhaps you're feeling completely lost because you've tried absolutely everything and it just doesn't seem to work. These kids do not respond to behavior charts. They don't respond to power being asserted over them. What these kids need is something completely different. And what I'm going to suggest to you is you actually stop trying to change them. If you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. And you cannot change these children. You cannot control their behavior. But if you change something around them, you change their environment, you change how you act, it will change how they react. It will change how they respond. If you change something, then no longer will you be stuck in this cycle of doing what you've always done and getting what you've always got. And those traditional methods do not work. So stop wasting your time and energy on them. I know you're looking for a solution and you feel like it's just not possible anymore, but let me tell you, I was in the exact same boat, and then I realized what we need is to do something radically different. My approach is to change the environment around them and to change how you interact with them, and that will have the biggest impact. It'll stop you feeling like your head is butting up against a wall, and it will start actually creating change with less effort. I believe in small, easy to implement shifts that create big change. So if you're interested in seeing what I have to offer, head over to marleydarling.com, and I've got a free webinar there for you to check out, and then comprehensive programs that cover everything I've learned in over a decade of parenting neurodiverse kids, and also in being a neurodiverse person myself who's been studying neurodiversity for over 17 years. I'm here to help you. I'm here to give a different approach, and I wholeheartedly believe that we need a radically different approach to support these children, to empower them to live the best lives possible, and to give you a bit of a break as the parent. So head on over to marleydarling.com, where you can find some free resources and maybe check out my comprehensive programs if you're ready to see a massive difference in your life through just some small shifts. See you there.